You're listening to episode 90 of The Secular Buddhist. Welcome to The Secular Buddhist. I'm Ted Meissner. The Secular Buddhist is the official podcast of the Secular Buddhist Association, a grassroots-driven effort to answer the needs of secular teaching and practice for contemporary society. The podcast has interviews and roundtable discussions pertaining to engaged Buddhist training and practice, and the SBA website has show notes for each episode along with resource materials. Though the podcast focuses on core practice from a secular viewpoint, more traditional teachings are welcome and openly discussed. Dana Nourie joins us to talk about the new Secular Buddhist Association website. Hi everyone. As we mentioned last week, today's episode is going to be dedicated to the new Secular Buddhist Association website. Some of the reasons why we've created a new and improved web presence for our secular Buddhist community, and what the features are to address those needs. I'm also very happy to announce that Glenn Wallace has accepted our request to join the Secular Buddhist Association Advisory Council. Glenn holds a PhD in Buddhist Studies from Harvard University's Department of Sanskrit and Indian Studies. Glenn is also the founder of the blog Speculative Non-Buddhism, which can be found on the blog roll section on the right-hand side of the SBA site, and we're so very happy he's participating. We'll be updating the About Directors and Staff page with more information about our council and its members as time goes on, and hope to have more leaders in secular Buddhist practice join us. In the meantime, you can use the search on the SBA site to find all the interviews and articles referencing Glenn. Just type in Glenn with two N's, Wallace, W-A-L-L-I-S, and click search. Our guest today, Dana Nourie, does not label herself a Buddhist, though she does practice Buddhist teaching and associates with secular Buddhists. She has been a guest on the Secular Buddhist podcast many times, and has been the primary blogger on the Secular Buddhist blog. So sit back, relax, and have a nice mulled wine, heavy on the cinnamon and light on the cloves. Off with you, my lad, and be lively. And we're here with our friend Dana Nourie once again. Hi, Dana.
Hi, Ted. Thanks for having me.
Very glad to have you here. And I got to say to everyone who's listening to the podcast that Dana has done the heavy lifting on the building of the new Secular Buddhist Association site. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. As I mentioned in the intro, the original site, thesecularbuddhist.com, was originally just designed to be a companion site and support for this podcast. And over time, there was increased interest in having more content and more community, and so I've added things to that over time, and eventually got to a point where we realized, no, we need something else. And we need the podcast to be an ancillary to a primary site whose focus is some of the issues that have come up and some of the needs that people have expressed for secular Buddhism. And one of the things I'd like to do is chat for just a minute on what three of those big needs have been, and these were articulated in the Secular Dharma Retreat at Berry Center with Stephen and Martine Batchelor. The three things that I thought we really needed, and that people have repeatedly expressed, is that we have a problem of consistency in what our message is. What is secular Buddhism? Right. And there are going to be variations to this, which is one reason on the new site I'm very general. I don't go into a great amount of detail, because this is going to evolve over time, and this will help support that natural development into many, many different branches in our contemporary society. But it does lay some foundation work about how secular Buddhism may be distinguished from, say, the other three big branches of Mahayana and Vajrayana and Theravadan practices. The second issue that has come up is that there is not a great deal of cohesion with our communities. We are few and far between, not always communicating, and there hasn't been, except for this podcast and a couple of other sites, a central location for people to go to. And
Right. It's a
so,
little bit like herding cats.
yes, right, and we're very independent, and that's been one of the challenges that Dana, you and I have talked about many times, is that our community is it tends to have a an inherent distrust, shall we say, of institution,
Yeah.
of a guru student kind of relationships. We're not really positively inclined towards that, and so that's been very difficult in the development of an organization to help support it. And so, as for folks listening, as Dana and Jan Ford and a few others and I were talking about this, we realized that our skill set, particularly mine and Dana's, doing a website much easier than doing an
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah,
And
yeah. But there is need for structure. So I think the website is a great place to start because it has to have structure. So,
exactly, exactly, and you brought up a very important point that this is a starting point. It's just the beginning. This is going to grow, and it's not in any way trying to predetermine how secular Buddhism is going to grow. We're very intentionally leaving that as open as we can. And the
right.
third challenge that we've had, and this is something that's yet to be developed on the site, is how we have some means of validating or authenticating or confirming the credentials of our teachers, because the street cred for Buddhist teachers these days is I come from X tradition.
Right.
And we're starting to see that change a bit. But how we very specifically gear it towards folks who are really not religious inclined to those forms, that's a challenge we still face, and probably one of the biggest ones. I think the site and the way we've designed it helps address that consistency and cohesion issue. And really, that all boils down to community building. That's been the biggest challenge and need that people have expressed. Um,
Yeah, and I think the way we've designed the site too, it's mirroring kind of how secular Buddhism has organically come out of the other tradition and the needs that the people have. I know when I first got into Buddhism, and I think this is really common across the board with secular Buddhists, is that there's stuff in Buddhism that they really, really like, they really find helpful, and that they identify with. But the other stuff that's in some of those traditions was very uncomfortable for us. And, and so we all had this need for secular Buddhism as far as information that we can learn about and put into the practice and then share. So those are the three elements that we put into the site is the information aspect from leaders, as you were saying, and teachers, and the community aspect, and then the sharing. So I think that it's organically come out of the similar needs that we all have in secular Buddhism, and that's really exciting.
yeah, yeah, it is. And I'm very excited to say that we have a growing body of advisory council members, and that is people who are really leaders in contemporary Western Buddhism. Stephen and Martine Batchelor
Hmm.
have agreed to be on the advisory council along with Stephen Scattini, and Ken McLeod most recently has also joined the advisory council. And my cunning plan on that, I may be too clever by half, so we'll see how it goes, is to include people from a variety of disciplines that contribute to our overall secular Buddhist practice. So
Yeah.
having a couple of people who are scholars, having a couple of people who are meditation teachers, things like that. And so I hope that this will be an ongoing growth to the site as well.
Right. And I really like in your podcast how you have included Buddhist experts in the traditional um, Buddhism as well, because I don't think any of us have abandoned those traditions. We all of us who study various traditions also got a lot out of it. So we're not abandoning those traditions. I think we're just practicing them in a different way and looking at them in new, fresh ways that the Pali Canon hasn't been looked at in this way in quite a long time, I think. So it's really exciting to have experts like Stephen Batchelor, who comes from a monk background and has studied the Pali language and is bringing up these suttas again, but with a different viewpoint.
And in fact, I would state that all four of the people I'd mentioned on the advisory council have been monastics in the
Yeah,
past, all of them.
yeah, yeah. So they've been on both sides of the street, which is really exciting. And then we have people who are fairly new to Buddhism, just in a few years, who are also studying Pali, like Linda Blanchard, and going over the suttas and giving us a fresh look at those. And I think that's really exciting as well. And we're mirroring that on the site too, hoping that others will follow suit and learn along with her in the discussion forums and that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's a nice segue. One of the things I wanted to mention, in addition to what Dana was just saying about how this is not in any way an antagonism towards the traditional practices, many of us come from those backgrounds, and we've learned a great deal from it. And we're not saying that those should go away at all. Those should will continue on their own. This is just another way to practice. I was re-scripting the introduction to the podcast, the stuff that's going on during the music, and a part that I'm making sure that I leave in is that the secular practice is the primary focus of this. We will still be looking at and welcoming traditional practices, and that is an important thing to us.
Right, right. And it's interesting the way secular Buddhism is evolving to include such modern things as scientific discovery too, and going under the microscope, so to speak, of scientific scrutiny. And while a lot of people disagree with that, I think it's really exciting because it's helping to validate some of our experiences. Not that we have to have that, but it's nice to have as a reality check. I know I had concerns about the jhanas, for instance. Is this really good for the brain to sit, and meditate that long? And the experiences people were having, is that a problem, but we're finding through scientific discovery that actually there are physical benefits in the brain, and so far nothing negative is showing up. And I think we do need to know if practices are hurting or if they're hurting from a scientific perspective. So it's great that your podcasts are touching on those and people are writing books about it. And so it's interesting to see how secular Buddhism is right in line with what's happening in modern day.
So, Dana, what I'd like us to do is talk for a few minutes about some of the key features of the new site. And I suppose I should repeat this often. The address for the site for folks listening is secularbuddhistassociation.com. There are links to that in the secularbuddhist.com site as well, and the Facebook links that I'll be putting up from here on out will probably be to the new site. But there are some key features that are specific to supporting this idea of community building. Dana, why don't you talk about a little bit on the discussion forum, because that's the part that I'm really excited about.
Sure, sure. Well, actually, let me start at the very top of the page of what people are going to see. I put some tabs at the top because I felt that community news, kind of what's happening in the community in general, is an important thing for people to see right off the top. And then you can also get to the latest discussions that are going on in the discussion forums. Now, the discussion forums are a special area of the site because what we have been hearing repeatedly, both in person and in Second Life and on Facebook, is that people need community. They need a Sangha to share the teachings, the new translations of the teachings, how they're practicing meditation methods, and everything that's in Buddhism. They have this need to share experience with each other, and so this is I put the discussion forums with some several different topic areas of Buddhism. We can always add more forums if we need them. Right now, I think we have about 5 of them. And so there's a forum for discussing meditation. There's a forum for discussing general Buddhist studies. There's a forum if you want to learn Pali. There's resources in there that help get you started. There are people in there who are already in the midst of learning. So that's a great area for people to dive into and learn a little bit about Pali and where all these teachings are coming from. So the discussion forum is a tool for Sangha. For if you don't have an in-person one or you want to supplement, this is a great place to discuss articles you've seen, practices you're doing, and so forth. So we really wanted the site itself to have this community feel. And so we also have, links to the Facebook page, the Twitter feed, the podcasts. People can subscribe to the forums or the podcasts or the articles through the RSS feeds. If they can't come visit the site on a regular basis, they can get all of that in their email as well, which is really nice. We also have latest polls, which we'll be putting up. And if people want to run a poll, they just need to use the contact form to let us know, what the question is and what options they'd like. And we can run polls to get a temperature of the community in various topic areas.
Excellent. And one of the features that I really do like about this, and I have to tell everyone, we owe Dana big time for making all of this happen because she is the technical expert on what we've been doing here, is that you are able to log in, register for the site, and you have your own ID that will follow you whether you're on the dashboard or whether you're commenting on one of the web pages for an episode. So, for example, in the way we used to have this is there's an episode page for every podcast episode, and comments and discussion would be a little bit hidden, I think, in Facebook, down a level. And although that was used not very often, what I'm hoping, and so this is a hint for people who are listening to the podcast, is when you go to when you go to the episode page for the episodes, because who can resist?
Yes, of course.
Their comments are just directly on that page, and I'm hopeful that will take off. That people are interested enough to make some comments, because certainly the people who are interviewed review these pages, and if they can see it right there or if questions are asked of them, I know that many people do link to these pages from their own sites, and so it's nice to see that helpful not hiding or making it a couple clicks away to get to the discussion. You can do it right there, and registration is only once, which is nice.
Yeah, it makes it far more convenient. They can listen to the podcast and then comment right on the page without having to go to another site. And you bring up the important point of the speakers watching these pages. I had concerns about David Chapman in the Vampires podcast about encouraging Tantra because my experience with what I knew was very negative. And so he responded right away, which was great, and told me some things I didn't know. So now I'm curious to learn more about that. So I think that's really important for listeners to know that if they have questions for the speakers, that they can put it in the comments and they'll get a response.
Yeah, yeah.
So
The hope is that the speakers will be interested in taking a look at that,
yeah,
and Dana and I are keeping an eye on things, so we will occasionally poke people
neck
if
and
there's a
poke
particular
people.
question for them. Yeah, we're good at poking people. We can do
Yeah.
that. Now, I'd also like to say that many of the features that people have expressed interest and uh, happiness with on the original site of the secularbuddhist.com of resources for books, listings of sites, the quotes, all of that stuff, that's still going to be on the Secular Buddhist Association. And much of that content has already been copied over. So rather than digging in two different places, I'll be redirecting a lot of the pages from the original site over to the new one because, again, there's a bit more of an ability to have interactions with others on the new site, which, just reminding you again, the address for that site is secularbuddhistassociation.com. Um, Dana, tell me also, there are a couple of other links on the very tippy top navigation, audio and video. Tell us about
Yeah, no,
those, 'cause that's also
yeah.
very cool to have.
Yeah, and actually that whole menu is very cool because the content is dynamically created, which means when you click on articles, you get all of the articles summaries on one page. So if something new has been added, it's going to show up there automatically. We also now have audio from great talks from the internet of various people that we're posting here in the audio. And then, of course, the Secular Buddhist podcast, people can get to all of those by clicking on that up there. The video is new, and well, you didn't have it on the podcast so much, but that's really neat too to have that feature. Linda Blanchard's videos that she created on skeptical Buddhism are in there, and that it's really neat to add those because those are some of my favorite videos. The Skeptical Buddhist group in Second Life was the first Buddhist group I had found who was willing to be skeptical about the teachings, and uh, it just really clicked with me. So it does my heart good to put those on the site, and we'll be adding to all of those sections above. So if people can also subscribe to those to the RSS feeds so that if they want to get the latest, whatever's been added to any one of those, they can do that.
Hmm. Yeah, I notice as I just take a look at the audio section, I just click on audio, and the first one that's there is the three characteristics of existence. It's a talk that Noah Levine gave, and Noah is the guest next week on the podcast. So it'll be interesting talking with him about this. And each of the audio recordings, Dana's again done the heavy lifting on populating a lot of these. These are streaming, so you don't have to subscribe. You can just go to the pages, and
Right.
if there's a particular one you see that you like, you can just play it right there. And if you want to download it and save it for yourself, there's also a link to do that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I also want to talk a little bit about the in-person groups that we're hoping to encourage. We're hoping the information we're providing will go viral, meaning people will take it and run to their own communities with it and start some in person communities. And Ted has provided some really nice information about how to start um, in person communities and kind of some guidelines and so forth, and meetup groups and that sort of thing. So we're hoping that more and more of that will happen and they'll let us know about it and we can list them on our pages.
Hmm. And in fact, one of the things that I wanted to make sure that people were aware of is that under resources, there is a partner sites link, and there are a lot of websites that are listed there that folks who are interested in the podcast and what's being said here would probably be interested in finding there. And as Dana was saying, in the community link, there is also a practice centers page, and this is also on the old site as well. But if you're interested in finding an in-person site, that's a place you can go. I also do list online groups and virtual communities and social networking of some Facebook pages. We've also left a web form on that page so that if you have a practice center, you know of one, that would be a good fit for the secular Buddhist to be listed on the practice center's page. And this is, bear in mind, all over the world. Do submit that to us, and we will get the page updated and have it added. Most of the things that I have listed under practice centers are in the U.S., but there are a couple in Australia. There's one in the Netherlands. And of course, our friends the Dharma Punks, again, speaking of Noah, their directory listing is linked there as well. So please do make sure that if you're interested in finding a practice center, take a look there, or if you know of one that would be a good addition, a center that's not particularly adhering to a traditional line, then we'd love to have it added here.
Yeah, we're really interested in helping people find each other, and related to that is the upcoming events.
Oh,
That
yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So we have a calendar of upcoming events, and if you have secular Buddhist talks that are happening in your area, please let us know, and we can add it to the calendar so that others in your area will know about it as well. This also goes for online activity as well, when there are online talks going on and so forth. I'm not seeing a whole lot of activity in that area, but I'm hoping over the course of time that's something that we can do in the future, is to have hosted chats or video talks with guest speakers and so forth. I think that would be really exciting. We certainly have the technology for it. So
We also have a link on the top called Book Reviews, and a few different kinds of pages show up with that. First is any episodes that are for the Secular Buddhist podcast, where I'm speaking with an author about a particular book of theirs. Those will show up because they are listed as a review, basically, of their book. And there are also separate articles that are specific reviews of books. I see that there is one here. I think, Dana, you wrote this one, Getting Knocked Off the Meditation Cushion
yeah.
on Learning Meditation.
Yeah, and then right below it is the podcast by that author.
Yep,
So
yep, by our friend
yeah,
Jason Siff. Yeah, excellent, excellent.
yeah, yeah.
So, one of the things that we do have also towards the top of the page is, of course, links to the Facebook fan page for the Secular Buddhist podcast. That link is going to stay the same. I'm considering maybe updating the logo so that it matches the Secular Buddhist Association, and also our Twitter feed, a link directly to iTunes for the podcast, and then again an RSS feed for just the site in general. If folks would like to keep up to date with it there, you can certainly do that. And let's see. We also have a blog roll of some blogs that are more contemporary in their views, and that is also appearing on the right-hand side. Dana, what else? What would you like to
I'd
talk
like
about?
to talk about the cloud a little bit, the tag cloud,
Yeah.
because people may not always understand what that is. They're kind of new. Um, in the right hand navigation, you'll see popular topics, and you'll see a whole listing of topics there, and they vary in size. They vary in size depending on how much content is associated with that topic. And it could be any kind of content. It could be articles, it could be podcasts, it could be videos. If you click any one of those topics, you get a page of all the content that is specifically tagged to that topic. And that can be really handy if you just want meditation, or you want to see everything that we've done on mindfulness or specific science. So I think that's a really neat feature. I use it a lot just to see what we have listed there and so forth.
Yeah,
And it's
I do like the science one. I just clicked on that, and I see a couple of interviews with a number of the scientists that we've
yeah,
had on the podcast, as well as articles. There's one on putting Buddhist practice under microscope, and another audio file of David Loy speaking about a Buddhist perspective on the eco crisis. In fact, I hope to get him back to do an interview specifically about that topic.
right, right. Yeah, so I think people can make good use of that and enjoy that.
Hmm.
Um, and
Search.
the yeah,
Search. Tell us about search.
the search took a little bit of work. The first search that we had on there was a bit messy and crazy. Now I have the search down so that you should just get the summaries of everything related to your search. So, yeah, that's really nice. If you're looking for a particular person or a particular topic, or if you have a title of some article or something you already know, but you just don't know where it is, search works awesome for that. And I also want to mention our FAQ because there are common questions to secular Buddhism. And if you just want to know what is secular Buddhism, how does it differ from the other traditions, what's the scoop on this? That's a great page to read. And if you have questions about secular Buddhism that aren't on there and you think it should be, use the form on that page and we'll add it. And then the last, I guess, is the contact page. We're not trying to exist in a vacuum. If you have questions for us, comments about the site, want to report problems, you can contact us and we will get back to you.
Yep, we will, and happily, it's something that we can be fairly responsive to that. So that's and one reason we designed the site the way we did is that we are able to be a little more responsive to this versus the old site where it had to be just by the nature of how I built it originally, me updating pages and FTPing them off to a set. No, we can do it a little more lively than we have
Yeah,
before.
yeah. The content management system is great for updating and for serving content that you want, rather
Right.
than just the static. And I do want to mention on the registration that it's a one-time thing. We do not sell or use your emails in any way, shape, or form. That is just so that you can comment on all of the content and interact in the forums.
Hmm. Yep,
It's a way
absolutely.
of protecting us from spam and robots and those kind of things.
Right, right.
Unfortunately, we do have to have one layer in between us and the robots out there.
Hmm. But once you're registered, it carries throughout, and that's been very, very handy. And you can update your own profile with as much or as little information as you like.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Well, the only other thing that I wanted to mention to people on this is one of the conspicuous absences, and I do get asked this fairly frequently, is you'll notice there is no donation button. And at this time, it's going to stay that way because we're not making a living off of this. That's not the idea. The way I have described the association, and this is on the About page. If you hold your mouse over About, there's a drop down that appears, but you can directly click on About. What I say there is the Secular Buddhist Association is a grassroots driven effort to answer the needs of this teaching and practice for contemporary society. And I mean that quite sincerely. Eventually, there will be at a point where we create an organization, hopefully not institution. For those of you who are listening to last week's episode with Ken McLeod, that will make particular sense to you. We are institution averse. Um, this is one of the ways in which we're showing this. It's volunteer. No one's making any money off of this, and we would like to keep it that way. Now, at some point, I know a lot of people have been asking about having a conference for secular Buddhism. In the event that we do get enough interest in that, and it looks like something people would really like to attend and move forward with, then at that time, for a specific purpose, we may look at accepting donations. We're not there yet. This is a first big step for the creation of a central location people can go, but again, don't have to go for information about secular Buddhism. One of the hopes is that the various groups that are starting in different areas, there are friends in the UK who are starting groups, that we would cross-link and mutually share a lot of the information and techniques we've used on this site with one another so that the answering of the local needs are met as well. What I envision is that there may be many secular Buddhist sites that start serving their various communities. And one reason Dana and I have made things this way is we've seen that be very successful with the secular humanist groups. That
Yeah.
they each have their own local group, and yet they do cross-link and share information and support their local communities. We have the benefit of the podcast and now happily the discussion forum, so that hopefully this site becomes one of the key locations where people can get useful information on it. That's our hope. But
Yeah.
again,
And pointed out the experts as well.
right, exactly. And
We're
our
very fortunate to have some really great experts, and I think that's going to grow more and more over time.
exactly. So this site is meant to hopefully serve a couple of needs, answer a few problems and challenges that we have in this growing secular Buddhist community. And we do hope you use the contact and do send us notes and let us know what works, what doesn't, what you'd like to see, because this is just the first release of this site. It's going to be growing over time. One of the things it doesn't yet at this time address is things like teacher training and certification. That may be something that eventually is a program that becomes available on the site for people who are interested in becoming teachers.
Yeah, I hope so because the learning curve so far has been um, becoming a monk or a nun and leaving that and then going somewhere else and
Right.
going on this long meandering path and then finally landing here. That's too much to expect for teachers going forward.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Dana, thank you very much for joining me today. Is there anything else you'd like to point out about the site?
Thank you for letting me talk about the site. It's been very exciting to put together. There were some challenges, but they were fun challenges, and I
hmm
learned some
hmm
new things. And it's all really exciting to me because, we've been listening to folks for a while now express their needs for a place to go for information and to develop community.
hmm
So it's really exciting to be able to provide this.
Excellent. Well, thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. If you'd like to learn more about something you've heard in today's podcast, please come visit the SBA website at www.secularbuddhistassociation.com, and you'll find an entire webpage devoted to this and every episode. Discussion about this episode can be found on the episode page itself, along with show notes. The music for The Secular Buddhist is used by permission from John Kaiser Neptune CD Steps in Time. Additional music is provided courtesy of Monty Levinson of Taihei Shakuhachi and Rodrigo Rodriguez. Their websites are linked on the SBA site on the About Podcast Music page. Until next time, remember, every moment you have a choice. Make it the best you can. See you next time on The Secular Buddhist.